from the Upmarket studio at Gasworks in beautiful San Buenaventura, California. This is Real VC, a podcast all about Ventura County real estate. My name is Reed Fish. I am the CEO of Upmarket Media, and oh my goodness, Katie Connolly, my co-host, the assistant team leader at Keller Williams, West Ventura County. Katie, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Chelsea Froelich is here producing.
Hi, guys.
Oh, Chelsea, it's so nice to be here. So we kind of, I think it's been a nice time for us here at Upmarket and for the podcast because we just launched our studio. Obviously, we've done a few episodes here already, but we kind of have the setup a little more dialed in, and we had like a big opening party to kind of launch the studio. Katie, you were there.
It was amazing. Saw so many familiar faces, a handful of new faces. It was, all the feedback was positive. So I'm super proud of you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. And you know, on the downside, we have a lot, we drank a lot, but we have a lot of alcohol left. So we're going to, I think we should move these recordings to the afternoon happy hour and we could just, go for it. So
podcast confessions.
Yeah. So if anyone hasn't been to the studio, you want to come, send us a message, come over, we'll drink some wine and give you a tour of the studio. And then our new kind of one of the bigger things we're doing here too is we're launching a branding side to our business, taking branding photos for realtors and small businesses. And so we're excited to launch that in the next few weeks. So
amazing. Yeah. You guys did my branding shoot and it was fantastic.
Oh God, so fun.
Yes,
I love it.
Thank you.
So Katie, we have a little bit of a different episode today because every time we've had realtors on, and today we have someone who's not a realtor, but is someone who, is a good friend of mine, and I think is doing some really interesting work here in Ventura County, kind of related to real estate. And so we have Dan Parziale, who is the co-founder and executive director of Mesa up in Ojai.
Yeah.
And so Dan, can you give me, I want the elevator pitch on what Mesa is, just real briefly here.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, of course.
Really stoked, really excited to be here, and appreciate the opportunity to share Mesa with anybody, anytime. And I'll try and keep this elevator pitch.
Yeah.
So like a 4-story elevator.
Okay. Yeah.
So Mesa is transitional housing. So up to 24 months of free housing for young adults in Ventura County who are experiencing homelessness. So 18 to 24-year-olds, in one of our 10 tiny homes on a 10-acre farm on the East End of Ojai. And we are kind of in mid-launch right now. So we started moving people on a month and a half ago. And we have 9 of our 12 residents. So we have our 10 tiny homes, and we have a main kind of farmhouse with 2 residences, in the main house.
Right.
So really excited. The kind of differentiator is that we are able to provide a really high level of support for up to 24 months. We have some really good time to spend with the people living on site and are working on a bunch of really fun things.
Okay. Well, so I want to drill down into a couple aspects of it because of what I know about Mesa. I think there are a couple things that, are differentiators, but you're really focused on young people.
Yep.
And then you're also focused on giving them holistic support. Right. So it's not just job training, although job training is part of it. Totally. It's not just psychotherapy, although that's part of it. All the stuff that you guys are doing support. So why young people and why are you approaching it this way?
Yeah. So I've been doing this work for a really long time. Grew up in Ojai, but then was in LA for 20s and 30s and spent the last 8 years or so working in homeless services in LA before moving back to Ojai 5 years ago or so. And what I was seeing in LA was that we could put in all of the work in the world to assisting folks that have been on the street for a really long time get back on their feet. And that's super important work. And we've got to continue to do that. But from my experience, as long as we continued to only focus on those people who've been on the street for a really long time, we're really missing an opportunity to prevent homelessness before it starts. And so the co-founder of Mesa, Kyle Thompson, and I spent a really long time looking at the data, looking at what was happening on the street, and decided that we wanted to focus on those, most vulnerable young adults who are, most likely to spend their life in and out of jail, on and off the street, and recognize that if we could spend that, focused attention and time working with that population, we could change the trajectory of their life, right? And that idea of prevention being something that makes a whole lot of sense for a lot of reasons is something that we could apply to homelessness.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I kind of want to link it all together. So real estate and community service in my eyes have always gone hand in hand. I'm very involved in multiple things. And most of the people in real estate that I associate with are definitely involved in communities. I know our leadership academy at the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors always has to do a community project every year. And it's funny because they always definitely go to like the big national organizations. We want to work with Habitat. We want to do, something that they've heard of before. And there are opportunities in our community to really help at a grassroots level, something that we can see, feel, and touch and be involved in and fill our hearts with. And I think that's a lot of the reason why realtors and real estate professionals get involved with charitable organizations. But I also think that there is just a strong link between communities. Like we put people in communities, we all live in the same communities. There's all kinds of different people in communities, and being involved in any way that we can is advantageous for all. So, and housing is housing, right? Well, exactly. Whether it's home ownership or.
Yeah. I mean, that's if realtors are focused on housing and putting people in housing. And I think it can extend also to people with no money and resources, right? So I think there is this kind of synergy that can be made between the real estate industry and the homelessness crisis, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking right now too about, going through the process of buying a home in Ojai 5 years ago, and remember, talking to our real estate agent about bringing together all of the different things that go into purchasing a home in a particular community, right? How are the schools tied in? How is access to, supermarkets or parks or, right? And the reality is that we know that all these things are unified, right? All these things are tied together. We consider a whole lot of things when we make choices in our life for ourselves or for our families. And kind of going back to this idea of kind of a holistic approach to ending homelessness, it's the same thing, right? We can't just talk about job training. We can't just talk about affordable housing. We can't just talk about mental health. All of these things are related. And I think that one of the things that we're trying to do at Mesa is say, yes. All of those things need to be considered. We need to be working on developing programming that takes the whole person into account. Right? You brought up kind of realtors getting involved in their communities. I would never want to discourage anyone from getting involved at Habitat or any of these other incredible organizations that are in our community, right? And I think, I'm really proud of the fact that Ventura County is doing some incredible work kind of across the board. And I know that realtors are super involved at a number of these organizations. And I would never want to say, well, how about us? But I do think there is some incredible opportunity for realtors to get involved at Mesa. And we are definitely, I think that it's easy for me to talk about the fact that realtors do an incredible job of bringing people home. And we're doing the same thing. And so let's work together to get that done.
Well, and one of the things I really find intriguing about Mesa is it almost feels like if you just really want to put it in crass terms almost of like, you almost get more bang for your buck, right? Because one thing when I was talking to you about this project, a while back is you had talked about how if you were trying to help someone who has been chronically homeless for 20, 25, 30 years, it is so much harder. And there are so many more resources that have to go into that for actually a not really great result. Because if you really think about it, we just think in the abstract of homelessness, oh gosh, that must be hard. But can you imagine living on the streets for 20 years? The trauma that you must have faced and, the issues that you've had, how can you get past that? But what you guys are trying to do is really stop that before it happens. And so, $1 spent on that is going to go a lot further than the thousands and thousands.
Totally.
And not that those people should be ignored that have been chronically homeless, but it's not waiting until it's like a giant problem.
Yeah. It's one of those like yes and solutions, right? Yes, we have to be working with folks that have been on the street and need, a leg up and getting their lives back on track. And we need to be doing work with folks before they've spent a ton of time on the street. And when you talk about people being on the street for decades, Absolutely. The reality is that things get bad really quickly. So we could talk a lot about the statistics around what happens in someone's life when they're on the street for a year. Like, what have they experienced in that year that is going to make it very difficult to get their life back on track? So, at Mesa right now, we have 9 of our 12 moved in that, as I mentioned, it's been 6 weeks since 4 of those 9 moved in. Of our 9, 4 are now employed.
It's amazing.
Right? Which is amazing. That only happens when you have a safe place to sleep at night and a place to wake up and take a shower and wash your clothes and have reliable transportation to get to work. That it can only happen if you have that, right? And so, these are relatively simple interventions that completely change somebody's life. In, let's say, I guess it was the 3rd week that people were living on site, we were able to work with a local yoga studio, Francesca Gold, who's at Breathe Ojai, and she has her master's in trauma-informed yoga. And our participants went and spent an hour and a half learning breathing techniques and somatic movement and pre-sleep ritual to assist with their sleeping. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, the number of friends that I have that would love to have this opportunity to think about their own sleep and how that impacts their life. And then looking at these young people who have come in unable to sleep well because they're sleeping in shelters or their cars or tents, right? And now they have the opportunity to sleep in a beautiful bed that was built actually by some realtors, right? We had a volunteer day where people came and helped build the furniture that are in these homes. These are simple interventions that completely change the trajectory of somebody's life. And being able to do that when you're 19 or 20 or 21 and not when you're 45 or 50, which again, still important, but how much more impactful is that when you're 18, 19, 20 years old and you're able to build a foundation for your life that you're able to take off from versus trying to unpack 20 years of trauma living on the street. So yeah, I mean, I think that I appreciate you making that pitch. I mean, I do believe that we need to be spending more resources on prevention. I think that working with young people is an incredible way to do that. And one of our goals at Mesa is to prove that.
All right. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is a lot of times those luxuries, breathing techniques and yoga, those are reserved for the wealthy. Those are expensive things to do. So there are people in the community in multiple facets of life that are willing to help. And it does just that. It helps.
Yeah.
For the long term.
All right. I'm going to do some breathing here. I think we need to take a little break. That was a lot of good stuff. So we are going to do a social media sidebar, and then we're going to come back. We're probably not going to talk about marketing. We're going to talk more about this stuff. And then we have, in the history of this podcast, we've never had a unified triple action item, but we are going to do that at the end of this show. So stick around for that. It's going to be, I think, our best action item of all time.
Sounds good.
All
Can't
right.
wait.
All right, social media sidebar. We're upmarket.media across, basically all the social medias that you consume. We're there at upmarket.media. And you can see, behind the scenes stuff about this podcast. You can see, when new episodes are coming out. And also, please subscribe, rate, review. I mean, we love those 5-star ratings. We love, people who subscribe to this. It keeps this podcast going. And Katie, where are we finding you now?
So first of all, I always get excited when I see that a new episode's dropped.
Oh, good. Well, yeah.
On a Tuesday morning. So
Yeah.
definitely like and subscribe. But you can find me at katie.connolly.realtor or Katie Connolly anywhere, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. There's a few other Katie Connollys, but you'll see me there.
You'll see. Yeah, you see.
Yeah. Not hard to find.
You know what she looks like. And so, Dan, tell us, where can we find more about Mesa online?
So at Mesa_farm on Instagram and Facebook. And that's it.
Well, you have a website.
Yes. mesafarm.org is our website. On it recently, there was a plug for Upmarket Media.
Well, yeah, because I was gonna pitch what we just did for you.
Pitch.
Well, okay, well, let me do it.
Okay, you do it.
So we were lucky enough, but right before all the residents started moving in, is we spent an afternoon out at Mesa on the hottest day of the year, mind you, photographing, and we did a 3D scan of the whole property. And so now, is there a link to it on the website?
Being added to our website.
Okay.
Yep.
So soon it will be on the website where you can go and you can actually do an immersive 3D tour of the facilities. So you can get a sense of where these young people are now living and what it's like to be out there. I mean, it's a beautiful property on the East End of Ojai.
Yeah.
And so,
Thanks. Yeah. It's, and just to give a little even more importance to that, us being able to show people what a, quote unquote homeless shelter can look like is really, really powerful. Next year, we're going to be showing that 3D tour, virtual tour, at the Housing Trust Fund, Ventura County Housing Trust Fund event. They do an annual compassion campaign, and they helped us purchase the property. And so we're showing their supporters, look what you were able to help make happen. And so being able to do that video is really great and really appreciative.
Oh yeah.
Shows that you have the right strategic partners too, right?
Yeah, of course. Come on. Yeah, who doesn't want to partner with Upmarket Media? Come on. It's the best. Okay. Well, that's great. So there's a lot more I want to talk about Mesa Farm. So the music's going to come up again, and then we're going to be back with Dan. And again, we got that amazing action item at the end. All right, so let's talk more about Mesa with Dan Parziale, the executive director and co-founder of Mesa. And I think after that first segment, I think we have a good sense of what it is that Mesa does. But how can we help? How can the real estate community help?
Well, the real estate community already has helped a ton, and in a variety of ways. So we've had some volunteer days, like I mentioned, where realtors have come out and spent time on the property doing gardening projects or doing furniture builds or whatever. We also have some individual real estate agents and realty offices that are contributing to Mesa. So one thing that we've been pushing is for realtors to elect to donate 1% of their commission on transactions.
Of their compensation, right?
To Mesa. Thank you. That usually ends up at, the $75 to $300 level.
Per transaction.
Per
usually.
transaction. Yeah.
That seems doable.
It's doable.
I think that's totally doable.
And it's fun. And it's really an incredible thing for us to have this community that's regularly chipping in, right? It gives us a reliable source of support, which is really important. And it gives us an opportunity to highlight the work that realtors are doing in our community. So we have a number of those folks jumping in, which is really great.
I've said for years that housing is a right, not a privilege, right? Regardless of what it is. And so having real estate partners that do that kind of stuff really lives and breathes that.
Yeah. I mean,
Sure.
it's a holistic approach to real estate, really, if you think about it, right? It's like, I don't know. I don't want to get into, I'm tempted to be like, we have a moral obligation, but I kind of think we do to help, to help our communities. And it obviously doesn't have to be through Mesa, but there's so many ways to do it. But it's, we make our bread and butter off real estate.
In terms of that kind of that moral obligation, I think one of the things that I sometimes bring up is that it's a really easy and kind of cliche thing to say that you need a village to raise a kid.
Right.
Right. And I think that is an easy concept to grasp onto when we think about our kids and our friends and our community helping to raise each other's kids. Right. In my opinion, the young adults that Mesa is serving are the kids that need a community. They're the kids. They're not kids. They're adults. They're young adults, 18 to 24 years old, right? But they are the folks that need a community to help raise them at this time. And so I think that, Mesa is built as a place that is integrative, right? It brings the community together. It brings in people to get to be a part of it, right? Mesa is not doing this by itself out on the East End of Ojai all alone, right? We can't do our job effectively if people don't get engaged, because these young adults are moving out into the community, right? After their stay at Mesa, they're moving to be your neighbor. And so let's practice being a community. Let's practice living together. And so I appreciate what you're saying, and I think it's true. And I think that ultimately it's what we want as a community, right? Is one that supports each other. And I think Mesa is a really good opportunity to do that.
Well, and I think, again, one of the things that really excites me about Mesa is it feels like this is different, right, than anything else. And it feels like, correct me if I'm wrong, that this could be repeated. That that this model is not just, it doesn't have to be unique to one property in Ojai.
Yeah.
It can be, in other spots in Ventura County. It can be other organizations around the country.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of really incredible work being done by organizations across our county, right? And there are a number of incredible nonprofits that have been doing this work for a really long time. And we all need to work together to continue to kind of chip away at what we're seeing as a growing problem. But I do believe, I know, right, that Mesa serving 12 young adults on the East End of Ojai is not going to solve the problem, right? This is a pilot, right? This is a proof of concept. This is us saying, hey.
It maybe solves the problem for 12 people, though, at a time, which is amazing, right?
At a time. Yeah. And, these are young adults that are coming from all over Ventura County. So like of our 9, we have some from Ojai and Santa Paula and Simi Valley and Oxnard and Ventura. So it really is a county-wide project. And it's certainly our goal to impact the ending of young adult homelessness in our county. Whether that means that Mesa opens up additional locations around the county, maybe. If that means that Mesa is helping to work with other nonprofits that are doing the same thing, maybe, right? Sharing best practices, collaborating, et cetera. So, yeah.
What I love about Mesa is from the first time I met you, probably like 2 years ago, you really have leaned into the real estate professionals. It had to be over 2 years ago that you came and spoke with us at the board of directors. And obviously we talked about housing and involvement and all that kind of stuff, but imagine in 5 years or 10 years when we get that first person from Mesa Farms that purchases a house and what that story is and what that tells the community that you can do it.
Yep.
That if I can do it, anyone can do it kind of story. And that's going to be from you leaning in from the very beginning and all of the hard work that you've done and then grabbing the right partners. And the hard work
that these young adults are doing. I think that, one of the things that I try and play with this balance, right? That you can come out to Mesa and it feels like incredibly like bucolic, beautiful, peaceful, these incredible tiny homes that people are living in. And it doesn't highlight in some ways the incredibly hard work that the young people who are living on site are doing to get their lives on track and to work on themselves and to get integrated into a community and all of that, right? Going to school, going to work. But you're right. And I got the chills when you brought that up, because I think one of the things that people talk about a lot is, okay, then what? Right. They're at Mesa and they've got to move out. It's only for at 2 years, some point. It's only, 24 months and the housing market in Ventura County is brutal. And how are they going to get to earn enough money to, be able to support themselves? And, we've got to prove that. We got to show it. But it's a beautiful thing to be thinking about someone not necessarily, just scraping by for the rest of their life and getting to a place where they're able to, purchase a home if that's what their goal is. And I 1,000% believe that will happen sooner than later. But yeah, what a cool thing. And it's going to take, a community to buy into that. And I believe that we can do it. And yeah, I'm excited to see where we head.
And let's just talk about the beauty of Ojai too. I also came from Los Angeles and I saw, they would put homeless shelters right by a freeway on-ramp and in these really kind of tucked away, non-usable sort of spaces. And we're lucky to be in Ventura County, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And then Ojai is like our beauty queen older sister, this beautiful, beautiful place. And so to have people experience that at any level of, life is really amazing.
Yeah,
that does exist, because some people don't even get to see places like that exist.
Been incredibly accepting and supportive of it. I mean, I think that, one of the fears, or, in this world of, homeless services is, NIMBYism, right? And people being really scared of having these kinds of things in their community. In part because we've worked really hard to be communicative and open and, transparent, and getting out in the community and talking about what we're doing and how we're doing it. In part because we respond to challenges as they come up, and we're really honest about what we're doing and how we're doing it. But I think that Mesa is an example of a really beautiful response to a challenging problem, and one that a community can get actually excited about. I was recently given a tour at Mesa, and the person that I was meeting with, I was talking about, there aren't too many homeless shelters that I know of. And I wouldn't call Mesa a homeless shelter, but there aren't too many places that are serving folks previously experiencing homelessness where people are like banging down our door, trying to get involved, like wanting to volunteer and wanting to get engaged. And that's in part because it's an incredibly beautiful and attractive model. And one that I think people can get really excited about. I think you bring up such a beautiful point that oftentimes the folks that need the most support actually get the worst kind of end of the stick to try and get a leg up. Right?
Yeah, and think about where those jobs are, and where in other situations that I've seen. But then imagine being an influential, I just did 18 to 25 year old, and getting a job in Ojai, and then getting an apartment in Ojai, and just being able to see this different life that,
It's why we need to feed people in our hospitals really, really good food so that they can recover more quickly, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. In my opinion, the folks that need the support the most should be getting the best resource, because that's going to help them get healthier and happier faster. And why not give them something that's going to most likely support them in improving their lives? So yeah, we're trying to do that.
Well, I think people want to help out because this program seems different than anything else, because you're just not building a shelter and then sticking people in there and be like, great, they have a house now.
It sounds like it really does sound like a preventative solution.
And that's the thing, is you see so much that there is pushback when there are homeless. I mean, we don't want to even get into it, but that there's stuff where it's like, if you're just talking about building housing that you're just going to stick homeless, currently homeless people in, a lot of people don't want that next to them. But with Mesa, I feel like, who wouldn't want it next to them?
And we have incredible neighbors. I mean, really neighbors that are getting involved. And it's really amazing for me when I hear from people in the community that say, oh, I know someone who lives down the street from Mesa. Like, they're stoked.
Right.
Like, that's mind blowing in this world. And I think that, we can all learn a lot from that. And I think it's really incredible for the young adults that are living at Mesa to feel not just, welcome, which is an incredible thing in and of itself, but also like excited, like the community is excited to have you here and excited to support you as you take off into the world. Right. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Man. All right. Beautiful.
So I think we could talk forever.
Yeah, totally. Well, that would take action. And so I think now, though, it is time for action item. And so we're just going to do one action item between the three of us, and I'll just go ahead and say it, is that get involved in your community, get involved in a charity. And specifically, I would ask, consider doing 1% to Mesa of your compensation. I think that, and even if it's not Mesa, there's probably some other wonderful organization that, aligns with your values that you could give 1% to. But I think it's such an easy thing to do. And it does, when you frame it of like, oh, it's $75 to $200. It's like, oh, okay. And it's all coming when you get a big check. So it's like, that's, a great way to do it, I think.
Yeah. Thanks.
I can commit to that.
Whoa.
Right.
I know.
All right.
Yeah. And then so to get more information, to sign up, we just go to you directly, or is there links on your website?
There are links on our website where you can reach out to us. You can always reach out to me directly as well. I'm happy to share my contact information maybe in the notes of the show. Sure. I want to make one just quick comment on this too, because thank you so much. Like, that's really beautiful and I appreciate it. And I think that one of the things that I said at our grand opening month and a half now ago, was that, the lives of the 12 people who are living at Mesa will absolutely be improved by your involvement. Absolutely. And I believe your life will get better too. Like, this is a good thing for all of us. And your life, I guarantee it, will improve by way of you getting involved in projects like this. It just will, because it makes us a happier, healthier community. And so do it for all the reasons. And I really appreciate your support.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you to our listeners. What a great episode. There we go.
Boom.
All right.
Thank you so much, guys.
All right, Dan.
Really appreciate it.
Real VC is a production of Upmarket Studios. This episode was produced by Chelsea Froelich and edited by Bethany Diedrich. We'll be back shortly with a brand new episode, but in the meantime, we hope that all your transactions will be smooth. Thank you for everything.